So hi again, and in this video I'm going to be focusing on this stats service. So this is basically the service that runs completely in the background, and it listens to the events in Kafka, and if there are any new events, it's going to process them and calculate statistics based on those events and submit that updated statistic to the MongoDB. So as usually, you can find the code of this project on the GitHub. It can be found at github.com artemkv kaboom -stats-service. So let's go and quickly look through the most important classes in this project and how it is organized. So this project is a Java Spring Boot application. So it has this application class that you can recognize that is the main class, main entry point into the application. So here we have we use the stats processor, and stats processor is a runnable. So if you go to the stats processor, it has this run method and implements runnable. So we're going to submit that to the thread pool in our application. So we define here the thread pool, and we execute that stats processor on a thread pool. That allows us to start this polling loop on a separate thread. So that stats processor is it needs the incoming event consumer, and it just runs this incoming event consumer on a separate thread. So who is that incoming event consumer? So in our implementation it's Kafka event consumer. So it is a class that listens to the events in Kafka, and it has this infinite loop, basically, that runs until the shutdown is requested. And in that infinite loop, we're going to constantly poll for the messages from Kafka. So this is the consumer is actually the Kafka consumer that connects to Kafka. So in case we have records, so we have new records that we have to process, we're going to pass them to the process method, and that process method is going to use this record, deserialize it into the up event, and pass it to the stats updater. So the up event is a class that is basically like a DTO. It just have properties for every property in a JSON method, JSON message. So for example, our JSON message has an A property that contains application code, so it will be deserialized into application code private variable on this up event class. So we're going to pass this up event class into the stats updater, and we have the implementation of stats updater called Mongo stats updater, and that's of course the class that submits that calculates the statistics and submits them to the MongoDB. So here we have a basic check on the event type. If it's a start event, we're going to update start event stats. If it's a crash event, we're going to update crash event stats. And let's walk quickly through to the update start event stats. So here we are connecting to the MongoDB, and we're going to update data in the user launches by month. And we're going to update for that application ID and the user ID, and for that date that we get from event, we're going to update the count, the value of the counter. So in essence, we're going to count. If that was a start event, we're going to count the start for that month. And in case we didn't have any matched count, so basically if we never saw any events for that application ID, for that user ID, and for that month, that means we get we get a new user launching the application for that month. So we can update unique users by month collection and just basically update the counter there. So we have the same logic for months, days, and hours. So our statistics can only be shown on the monthly, daily, and hourly basis. This is kind of limitation for now, but it worked for me. So if you would need more granularity or the larger granularity, we would have to add an extra collection. So you could imagine that we would have to add user launches by year collection, for example, and then you would be able to see that statistics. So similarly, we update stats for the crash events. For the crash, we have slightly different granularity. I don't know, it's felt for me that for crashes, you might be actually interested in having a number of crashes per year or per minute, and even by second, but actually turn out to be not really useful. So what code is still here. And we're also going to save crash details. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this crash info with for this application code. The crash info contains message details and date, but we also have in the hash here. What is hash? The hash is something, so I actually use the message and details. So details contains stack trace. So I use that to calculate the digest. So the MD5 hash, I think that is. Yeah, it's MD5. So and this for every exception, I also submit this hash value together with the exception data. So that allows me then to if I have the same exception with exactly the same message and exactly the same stack trace, I don't have to store it twice. I just increase the counter for that exception, and so I use the hash to compare for the equality. So if I find the exception with the same hash code, I increment the counter for that exception. I don't save it again. Yeah, so that's basically the essence of this service. So we take the events from Kafka, we process them and submit the kind of statistics to the MongoDB in the collections that are efficient to query. So if we would need to know information about, for example, how many launches we had for the specific month or specific day, we have that information already denormalized, ready for querying in MongoDB, and that's what this service does. This service also delivered as a Docker container, so we have Docker file, and I use the Maven plugin to trigger the creation of the Docker container. Yeah, so when I also have this Circle CI integration, so every time I submit, I check into the master branch for this solution, my Circle CI integration is going to build this project, run tests, and also create a Docker container, and we actually also have this Docker file push, so it's going to push the newly created Docker container to the Docker Hub. So when I want to update this service in production, I just have to pull this Docker container from the Docker Hub and use that. So that concludes this overview of this stats service, and that's it for this video. Hopefully see you next one. Bye.